$10,000. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. Welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me host companion, it's Sejan Sarowick. How are you doing, Sejan?
It got really piratey at the end. Robert Shaw to Captain Jack.
And I guess that's why I won't be doing the whole episode in the guise of Quint.
That's not fair. Not Captain Jack. More like Jeffrey Rush there. What's his name?
What is this name? Barbosa. Adrian Barbosa. Yeah. Captain Adrian Barbosa.
Played by the whitest man ever.
Oh, goodness gracious, Sejan. We're here in the studio recording another episode of the Say Report, and this time it's a big one, buddy. What is 50 years since Jaws came out?
Yeah, 50 years, and and changed the landscape of cinema, like and what it meant to make a movie.
I mean, not only that, we're gonna have to discuss whether or not. I mean, everybody calls Jaws the first summer blockbuster, but can you be a summer blockbuster if you release on June 20th, a full day before the solstice? I kid, of course.
Is that an actual question, or are you just goofing?
I'm goofing. I'm being an asshole. You need to understand that I watched the movie this morning, so Decker tradition, when Quint cracks his can of Narragansett on the Orca, we all crack one, and we do it as fast as possible. But you got to be prepared for that, so of course we start the movie off with the Narragansett as well. So in tradition, this is my third beer that I'm having before noon on the East Coast.
As is tradition.
As is tradition. I mean, I freaking love that every summer Narragansett... First of all, I love that Narragansett beer is back because they closed for like 20 years they were closed, right?
Yeah, but they've had a real swing back in the last 20 years.
Yeah. So I like that they're beer again, that you can buy Narragansett beer. But I also like that every summer they bring back the 1975 can that looks like that. I mean, it actually has a pull tab. It's not like the ones where you have to pop it open with the other side of your church key. Kids, that's what the sharp side of your church key is for. Opening cans of beer before Pop-Tops were invented. Isn't that fun?
Or pineapple juice. You know, various Kool-Aids.
Any juicy juice. Because it's 100% real juice, it has to be sealed in a can. Otherwise, the bugs will get in. But see, you learn things here at the Say Report. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. But I guess fuck Richard Dreyfuss is just what I'm going to say. The guy's a lunatic. We are acknowledging that at the Say Report. But you do not grow up in New England without having a deep affinity for Jaws. Let alone the fact that, like, the world has a deep affinity for Jaws. So we're going to put aside the fact that Richard Dreyfuss is a fucking weirdo. And we're still going to talk about this movie. And I'm excited to do it. I really am. Because Sejan's not wrong.
Here's the thing, man. I thought you meant in this movie at first, and I was like, yeah, he is. Yep, I was right there with you. So it's not like his character in the movie is any more stable.
Oh, yeah. It turns out Richard Dreyfuss, we're like, man, he's such an amazing actor. He wasn't acting, guys. He was just a crazy asshole this whole time. I remember The American President. We're going to do a lot of revisiting the 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th anniversaries of the film Jaws in this celebration for the 40th anniversary. So in 1995, 20 years after Jaws comes out, Richard Dreyfuss is in a little movie called The American President, written by Aaron Sorkin. And he has the most sadistic fucking line in that movie.
He's not the lead, right? The American President.
The American President is Michael Douglas. Yeah.
Right.
The American President is about the fact that current President Michael Douglas is going to have to run for re-election in 1996. And he's a Democrat. Michael Douglas plays a Democrat. Richard Dreyfuss is the Republican candidate who's going to challenge him for re-election. And there's this moment where, so Michael Douglas, of course, the worst thing he could possibly do, starts dating a woman as a widower, played by Annette Bening, right? Fuck, this took
the plot of the movie is the fact that he is a widowed president, and he is interested in no longer being widowed, and it's like the politics around that, which is a really wild story. But Sorkin does his thing. It's a pretty phenomenal.
It's a good movie. This is probably the coverage that it's going to get here in its 30th anniversary. If the Say Reports lasts for 10 more years, which would be my druthers, we'll do it for the 40th anniversary. We'll cover the American President like proper, because I love that movie. I do.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, getting into politics and Sorkin and all that right now is not exactly what I want to be doing on our fun podcast.
Yeah, he's the guy bringing up good points, right? But I do have to talk about just Dreyfus 20 years later playing the Republican who's going up against the Democrat, and they get this photo of Sidney, that's the character that Annette Bening plays in the movie, burning an American flag. Now, of course, that film has that act has context, and the context is she's burning an American flag at an anti-apartheid rally. She's not like just burning a flag for fun. She's burning it for a reason. And they're like, well, we're gonna freaking color this though. We're gonna completely change the look of this. And then he looks so sadistically out the window as it's snowing, and just like sings to himself in this gleefully super villainous way. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And like, yeah, Richard Dreyfuss is a crazy bastard. And it needs to be acknowledged, right? We're probably never going to do American Graffiti as much as I love that film. And that's because that's definitely like Richard Dreyfuss's movie. His whole breaking in to see Wolfman Jack and everything. But this film, I mean, I watched this movie for Roy Schneider. I'm going to be honest. Well, I kind of watched this movie for the fucking shark. Let's be honest. Bruce is a beauty boy. But if I had to choose the order that I'm watching this film, it's Roy Schneider, and then it's Robert Shaw, then it's probably Lorraine Gary, Carl Gottlieb, and the guy who plays the mayor, and then Robert Dreyfuss. Oh, I forgot about rubber
Richard
orange
Dreyfuss.
hat guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, I think that the back third of this movie is just the three of them on a boat, right? Schneider and Dreyfuss and Shaw, and like it is, or Scheider, not Schneider. I'm gonna do that multiple times throughout this today, and I apologize. But it is Scheider. Anyway, sorry. Just the three of them on a boat, like, you know, like bonding and like and talking about life, and they, you know, they do a great job carrying the movie. So it's hard to argue like that. Like, no, there's a reason that he's like third build on this. Actually, he might even be second build.
I think he's second build. I think the way that they did it, it's one of those Cheers where Ted Dance's name is going to be at the top of the screen, but over to the right, and Shelley Long will be on the bottom, but on the left, because people read left to right, and it'll make you both feel like you're the stars of this particular picture. When it shows Scheider, Shaw, and Dreyfuss, it is Scheider and Dreyfuss are on the same level, and Shaw is in the center between their names, slightly elevated. It's a really interesting way to do it. But I don't know how that would translate to the billing, particularly, because I'm not sure. I was gonna grab my Leonard Maltin film compendium, but I forgot.
This is their movie, right? Like they really own this film, and there's a reason that it is as memorable as it is all this time later. And it's not just the acting, like Spielberg's directing and some of the shots in this movie. Also, did you see any of the 4K stuff?
I watched the 4K version today.
It's gorgeous. It is
a beautiful.
I mean, and the thing is like I have a deep. This is going to sound really hipstery, and I'm going to own that right now. But I have a very deep affinity for watching restored versions.
I get
right?
that. I totally understand.
Give me the ability to still play it on my Blu-ray player, but you don't need to. I don't need the restoration. Or if there's going to be a restored version, which I understand, like the reasons for that for historical like reasons, like why you would want to have restored versions. At least still keep a version and give me a version that I can get that is the original, because there's something about watching. I watched a shitty ass cut that I have ripped a long time ago that I have owned, that it's just on my computer and has been for years. And like there's something about that cut that it almost feels like in the corner the MST3K guy should pop up at some point. Like it like has that like graininess to it and that feel to it, and it reminds you that what level of movie this actually was. Because you could watch that 4K version and you could be forgiven for thinking that this was a high budget fucking film, but that's not what they. This was a horror movie in the 70s, like, and the idea of the blockbuster, the summer action blockbuster didn't exist, because this movie was the one that really kind of inspired it. So like when this movie was being made, when this movie was being advertised, when people went and bought tickets to go see this movie, they weren't expecting this. They were expecting something more akin to like Friday the 13th or Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Or Frogs, because I have to name check Frogs if we're talking about an environmental horror movie. 1972. God, that movie's excellent. If you've never seen Frogs, I always recommend it. Usually while I'm talking about Jaws. But yeah, this movie, it is a horror film, right? At its core, this is essentially a horror film. That's how you sell it, right? Yeah. It's a monster movie, right? And you get just so much more character development and times without the monster than you would ever expect in this type of film.
You get the Spielberg treatment. Yeah. You just, at the time, you just didn't know what that was. We now have the benefit of 50 years to say, like, we know exactly what to expect. And you're right. Like, you spend a lot of time getting to know the people in the town. You spend a lot of time getting to see the reasons why people are connected to the victims. They're not just like hapless victims that we, are there for fodder. Like, it's story significant when somebody is killed, which is not always the case in slasher films and monster movies and things like that, right? There's something really like hefty about Jaws that if you weren't ready for it would be mind-blowing.
Which all seems like the perfect segue into my favorite seeing Jaws in the theater story. And this is from 1975. So it's not my story, it's not Siegen's story. This is one of our professors in college. He was a little 5-year-old DTH. We've name checked him before, but we'll just refer to him as DTH here. And his parents take him to go see Jaws while they're on vacation in Cape Cod. This is when they take the 5-year-old to go see Jaws, because they don't know what to expect at this time.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about this is there's that wonderful scene. Historically, it's an insert, too. Like, it wasn't something that they had, but then they're like, we just need something to really, like, show how deadly this is and how truthful the threat of the shark actually is. So that's when they go out at night to see if they can find the shark. It's a shark. It's a night feeder. Will go out, and they find Ben Gardner's boat. And Hooper finds that tooth the size of a shot glass, and then into frame floats Ben Gardner's lifeless body. And his head is like all bloated, and you got the sea creature crawling out of his left eye. I mean, it is a striking scene that every time I have watched this movie with my mother, it has gotten her. That jump scare hits her every time. But 1975, first time seeing this movie, that occurs, and DTH's mom reacts and goes, "Ah!" and throws her hands back, smacking her 5-year-old child in the cinema seat next to her across the face. Now, you want to talk about traumatic moments for a young lad. Something scary happening in front of you, and your mother striking you as if it is your fault. That's the type of shit that sticks with a person.
I don't mean to laugh. It's only because I know what a great person he became. So,
Oh, I know. When he told me that story, I'm just like, why is this happening? This is the greatest
How are you not a supervillain right now?
And he's like, and then also, we're at the Cape, and I just saw Jaws, so of course, I don't want to go fucking swimming. And then they're mad at me, like, why don't you want to go swimming, son? And it's like, because of the shark. Like, what the hell? It's just... I think
that movie made it pretty clear why I don't want to go swimming.
Yeah, right? It's not okay to go into the water. And I know that you don't want to talk about the politics. We want to have a fun episode. So let's get Mayor Larry Vaughn out of the way. Let's talk about Mayor Larry Vaughn.
We can talk about that.
I was mad at Dale during this viewing of Jaws in preparation for our celebration of its 50th anniversary here on the show because she called him a Trump-ass mayor. And I'm like, oh, fuck, he really is, right? There's no shark out there. It's safe to go out in the water. And that never hit me the way it hit me this viewing of the movie. And I still watch it every year, right? I watch it every summer. It is a tradition in this house. But, last year and the couple of years between it, I have been heavily altered, either by alcohol or other means to alter, right? It's usually like we've been having a pretty good July 4th. We're out of fireworks. Let's all go inside and watch Jaws. That'll be a good way to wrap up the evening. But
that might still happen.
What?
That might still happen.
Oh, that's probably still going to happen on July 4th. And I look forward to it. I really do. But, so watching it and realizing that, like, man... in a post-COVID world, there would not be people. There's that whole scene on July 4th where I don't understand what the fucking mayor is upset about, right? There's all those people are there on Amity Island. They show the Midway, and it is just full of humanity and humanity spending money, right? So it's not like nobody came for July 4th on the island. Had that been the case, I understand why it is. And you still have all those people who are there spending money. Fuck, if they're not in the water, all they're going to do is spend more money, right?
Well, I think that there's something interesting here to mention. There was a book before the movie, kind of, right? Wasn't it? It was.
There's a book by Pete Benchley. That is a really fictional thing.
Well, no, because one of the big things that the movie doesn't capture that the book really kind of leans into. I read this when I was like 14, so forgive me for.
I intend on reading it this summer,
or anything.
For the record.
But there's a lot more of a feeling of desperation in that the town really is suffering because people aren't coming for the 4th of July. The movie, I think because being filmed on location and things like that, they weren't going to be able to clear out a fucking Midway during the summer in New England. Again, they were not. This wasn't Steven Spielberg as we know him now. This was just little Stevie coming in, being like, "Can you guys get out of my way so I can put my camera down?"
I'm a fableman. Let me make my movie.
But like, I think that's where the disconnect comes from, is because the book, it feels a lot more desperate. It almost felt really, the reason that I loved it when I read it at the time is that it felt very Stephen King-y to me. And as we've talked about before, grew up in a very Stephen King house. And there's that town aspect of, like, because things are starting to go sideways, the shittier sides of people really start to come out, which is a big thing in King books. When he does his big community stories, you always inevitably have that moment when you start to see the worst in everybody. And I think that the movie, unfortunately, because of how and where it's made, just decides to play it completely differently and doesn't show you how desperate the town really gets.
Yeah, and that is, I think, to its detriment just that little bit, because they all tell you, oh, you don't want to be on, like, Quint has that line, either we take care of the shark or you'll be on welfare for Christmas. Like, okay, that's fair, but I'm not seeing that at all in the town. Like, it's not a struggle to get people there for the 4th of July. Like, I understand how this type of area works. I get the tourist destination that banks on we make all of our money in the 3 months of the summer. First of all, I could throw a rock from my house and hit at least 4 of them, right? It's something that, like, inherently we're around. Second, most of my, like, formative years as a working person in the workforce was for travel agencies or on cruise ships. So, like, I saw it firsthand that, like, this is our on season. This is when we have to make the money so we can survive the off season.
We definitely grew up in an area where seasonal work and seasonal money was part of the math.
Yeah. So you're right. I have a copy of the book that was gifted to me, I think 2 years ago, and I figured for the 50th, I'm finally going to sit down and read it. And one of the reasons I want to read it is because with that, I was also gifted a copy of Jaws: The Revenge. This will be the only time that Jaws: The Revenge is brought up. But the novelization of Jaws: The Revenge, that shark is possessed by voodoo magic and sent to kill the remaining members of the Brody clan. And I'm excited to read that. But it feels disingenuous to read Jaws: The Revenge without originally reading Peter Benchley's novel, on which this film is based.
I've never seen the movie, but I've seen the house it built. It's beautiful. Isn't that the quote?
Yes, that is what Michael Caine said. Mario Van
Awful,
Peebles.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, well, you know. Michael Caine's not awful. Your Michael Caine is awful, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Michael Caine's more. Yes, I've seen the house it built.
Nope. That's Bane.
Sorry, that's Michael Bain. Why do we fall down, Master Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. And I know that we're supposed to be celebrating Jaws in this episode, and we're celebrating Jaws.
But this is what Jaws did, right?
This is what
Jaws created this amazing summer movie experience that led to 3 more movies being made out of this. The idea of the never-ending sequel and stuff like that, like and people going to them because like Michael Caine wasn't full of shit when he was saying that, like, yeah, people saw that movie, but not me.
It's true. I mean, the fact that there's a Jaws 2 is crazy, like, has always blown my mind. And then Jaws 3, where they kill one of the kids, right? Michael, and I don't remember the other son of Martin Brody. Henry, maybe? I think it's Henry and Michael. One of them dies. Like, that's like a big inciting action of Jaws 3, or Jaws 3D. And then in the 4th movie, Jaws: The Revenge, the one who died is the one who's alive, and the inciting action is the other one dying. Which I think is just
as well as, like, him dying, like, off screen, right? Don't they just, like, write him off as, like, having a heart attack or something?
Yeah, he died not because of sharks. He died in a way that Superman could not save him. So that's all wonderful. And it's just, they're these crazy films. And then in a summer where we're going to get our 7th film in the Jurassic Park franchise, and the 4th with the title Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, in case you're not aware, Steven Spielberg film. Sorry to be an asshole, but it's kind of fun to do it. And we were going to probably cover it, but a writer's strike and an actor's strike happened at the tail end of 2023, so our hands were a bit tied.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it eventually, right? All this stuff. A Jurassic Park podcast finally knocked the Adam Sandler podcast off of #1 in the film history chart. So, like, I have a little bit of animosity, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Jaws. But yeah, like, this is what Steven Spielberg does. And if we're going to talk about Steven Spielberg, right, the Fableman himself, what he has really done is he produces one film of the ilk of Jaws each year, and one film of the ilk of, I'm gonna say, Schindler's List. I know that, like, he's done other serious films, but the fact that Jurassic Park and Schindler's List both come out in 1993, and one is hyper commercially successful, and the other one is hyper critically successful, while also still finding commercial success. But there's a reason we don't have 7 Schindler's List films. I'm just going to be the person who puts that out into the ether.
Yeah.
But there is, right? Like, he could be making lists about other things. Schindler's List, and it's him inventing Craigslist. It's a list of things that people are trying to find or get rid of. I have a bunch of red jackets available. I'm such an asshole. Oh, but yeah, Jaws. It changed film as we know it. And I know that we're still pretty early on in this episode, but I would say, without things, Jaws is what every future summer blockbuster has been chasing. And I don't think any film in the 50 years since Jaws came out has been as perfect a film. I feel like every film is just missing like that one little bit. Everything is chasing it, and people have gotten close, right? I'll look at Jurassic Park, right? And I know it's still Steven Spielberg, right? Or like Ghostbusters was one. Frickin' the Back to the Future. These are the types of movies that like are elevated to the same summer blockbuster status. Frickin' Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I don't think any of those films hit the exact same level of perfection that Jaws does. I would never say that Jaws is one of my favorite movies. It was never on any of my like top 10 or top 9 film lists. But I think that's because, for the same reason URI, right? And I know it's an urban legend, but just come with me on this. That URI is no longer on Playboy's top party schools because it's for amateurs. You don't include professionals. Like Jaws, without question, is a perfect film, and a film that everybody should see, and a film that everybody references, right? 20 years after this movie comes out, Kevin Smith, who at the time had only made Clerks, which has a couple of fantastic Jaws references in it. Salsa shark, man goes into the salsa, sharks in the salsa, our shark. We're gonna need a bigger chip. I think he says we're gonna need a bigger boat. I'm just being an asshole. I'm Monday morning quarterbacking Clerks 30 years after the fact. But he gets to make a movie with Universal. He makes a huge plot point of Mallrats being that T.S. Quint wants to propose to his girlfriend on the Universal Studios tour at the part where Jaws jumps out of the water, and his best friend Brody Bruce is there to help nurse his broken heart when that happens. Like, he was that is right there. And honestly, when I realized how big all of the like references to Jaws was in Chasing Amy 2 years later, where we have a character named Hooper X, who is a radical black militist, but actually that's all an act, so that because he's actually a homosexual inside. God, I love Chasing Amy, and I hope that we're able to talk about it, but that's a production meeting for another day. But they have that whole scene at the bar where Jason Lee and Joey Lauren Adams compare the permanent injuries that they've received while going down on girls. And if that scene isn't show me the way to go home from Jaws, then I just don't understand Cinema Siegen, and I should stop podcasting altogether.
Yeah, what you're getting at is that, like, it's the referent. When people talk about, oh, this isn't a perfect movie, this is what they would consider to be the perfect movie to compare it to, right? Like, this is what you can. There has to be a best for everything else to be compared to, and I think that there's something to be said about some of the ways that this movie is paced a little oddly, like, and again, like, it blew everybody away. I think Spielberg has gotten better at pacing his movies as he's made more movies. Surprise, surprise. I think as he has made more films, he has gotten better at telling stories. Also, I think not being tied to something like, hey, we want you to turn this book into a movie. Like, he does a lot more going forward of, like, kind of producing that sort of stuff. I guess he does like, because he does the Jurassic Park stuff, which is off of a book, and he does like Minority Report, which is technically a story, right?
Yeah.
But
Catch Me If You Can is kind of technically one. Schindler's List is based on the book that's based on it, but he also does do like Hook. As much as Hook is based on Peter Pan, that film is pretty much all original bullshit, right? There's no Rufio and J.M. Barrie's little book.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got some really fun ones that later in his career too. Like he directs Tom Hanks in The Terminal, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does do The Terminal.
Yeah,
but then also, if we're going to talk about, he is also doing adaptations because he's the guy who did Ready Player One. You know, the film where historically someone sat behind me in the theater and said, "I'm really excited to see Steven Spielberg tackle a summer blockbuster." It feels like I've never seen him do one of those. And I did the slow turn. Like, is this guy serious? I don't want to engage. This feels like clickbait in real life.
Yeah, he had also done he had also done BFG too around that same time.
BFG, I wish more people liked BFG. That movie was really, really good, but I think it hit the wrong time.
I think it's definitely one of those movies that's going to sit nicely in the middle, and people will watch on it for it'll always be something that gets watched eventually. It'll be the perfect movie for like a daycare to have on hand to put on for kids, and then when they go home, they'll talk about it, and their parents won't know what the fuck movie they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those that had a $140 budget and only grossed $55 million in U.S. and Canada and $195 worldwide with an $18.7 million opening weekend domestically. So that was one. Like, BFG was made to be a summer blockbuster, and it just kind of failed, which is disappointing, especially the Mark Rylance of it, and Mark Rylance off the heels of Bridge of Spies, which was fucking incredible. Right? Yeah,
yes.
This is definitely the part of the episode where we're like, Steven Spielberg's a great director. Did you know he directed the first episode of Columbo?
Did he really?
Yeah, I kind of want to watch it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, after Bradley was like, you got to watch Strange Bedfellows, he's like, you should check out the first Columbo. You're going to be surprised who the director is. So I looked it up, and I'm seeing it here as I'm on Steven Spielberg's page, that he directed one episode of Columbo, Season 1, Episode 1. So, yeah, there you go. Murder by the Book. And apparently it's just like a Steven Spielberg movie, but made for television.
I mean, like, give me some of those awkward upward shots into up people's noses and having some serious conversations about family while also somehow being about world politics.
I want Columbo eye to eye with an animal to show the awesome power that nature possesses, and yet our hero was able to wield it. God, did he direct the first Transformers, or was he just a producer on it? Because it was Michael Bay who directed it, right? But there's so many moments in the first Transformers live-action film from 2007 that are Spielberg coded, and yeah, I don't know, I like it. But you're not what Sejan said is correct. This is the perfection that most people have in their minds that they're chasing. And I don't think there's any bigger thing of that. Like, we covered Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo, which released in 2005, which would have been the 30th anniversary of Jaws, and who inexplicably is playing a Robert Shaw character for clearly no other reason than the fact that this is releasing during the 30th anniversary of Jaws. It's Norm Macdonald.
Right.
It is, watching this movie, it just recontextualized all these things. I'm mad that Ghostbusters Answer the Call released in 2016 because the whole thing with Andy Garcia and Kristen Wiig saying you're the mayor from Jaws. I am not the mayor from Jaws. Is just so good. And then Hubie Halloween, right? Hubie Halloween released for the 45th anniversary of Jaws. Literally, the mayor of Salem dresses in the same clothing as Larry Vaughn. We in this house, right? And I've talked about this before, joke that every day there is a reference to the Wizard of Oz. Now, a bit of that is putting your thumb on the scale, right? If it's an unobserved world, right, once you're observing it, you're bringing in your own biases. So that's part of it. And I understand that that's part of it, right? But at the same time, it does happen. And then I joke the same is true for Scooby-Doo. There are so many references to Jaws that you don't even think about. Think about Bad Hat Harry and all those, that production logo. Is that Joss Whedon? That's some Bad Hat Harry? production company, or?
No, he's the weird monster one.
Yeah, that's right. I thought the weird no, that's Bad Robot, who's J.J. Abrams. Bad Hat Harry. Who is that? It's one of them, right? It's Bryan Singer. That's who it is. Also, kind of problematic.
Extremely.
Yeah.
But also another director heavily inspired by Spielberg. You can see in a lot of his work.
Yes. So, so down to the fact that he named his production company off of a weird throwaway moment at the beginning of Jaws that I'm sending to Sejin right now, because that's the beauty of us recording this online.
Oh, man.
So, I mean,
weird dude.
We've kind of just been talking about the movie. Should we, say what this is about? I mean, what do you want to focus on for Jaws 50th anniversary, Sejin?
Man, I don't know. I mean, because part of it is that I'm coming in with the assumption that people know what Jaws is about, right?
One would hope so. It's been 50 years.
Yeah, but maybe that's not the case. Are we at a point where a movie like this is kind of getting lost in the sauce somewhere?
So that's an interesting question, because this is our third, I think it's technically our third. If we've done another one, let us know, remind us. 50th anniversary celebration of a film on this series. Because we've done The Godfather, and we've done The Godfather Part 2. And one of my stipulations for us doing a Godfather episode was that eventually we would cover the 50th anniversary of Jaws, right? And
right.
Then it was not, and it was not Sejin
I was gonna say it wasn't much of a fight, but also yes, that was definitely something you brought up.
I'm like, dude, if we're gonna start doing this, Jaws has to be one. And I think part of that comes from the fact that, have you ever seen Jaws in a movie theater? Is the question that I want answered. Have you ever gotten to see it in the most hallowed hall that is the cinema?
No, I've done a in the park viewing of it, which is kind of similar. So I've been around a crowd, but it was very much a very loosey-goosey type of thing, as opposed to going into the movie theater, sitting down, watching it, surround sound, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a completely different animal when you get to see a film like this in the theater. It really. And the first time I did it, remember Cinema World up in Lincoln? It's still there.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big part of exactly what we are as friends, right? Cinema World is where this friendship really became galvanized, seeing all those movies. In the summer of, I want to say it was 2006, but I'm not 100% sure. I still have the ticket, and I was unable to find it before we recorded. They did a summer Blockbuster, triple feature. And it was $25, and you got to see original prints of Back to the Future, E.T., and Jaws. And it was I'm going to go do that. Now, maybe it was even 2005, because I didn't have my license. I had to find somebody who was willing to drive me to go see this and experience this, which is when I found out that there's a scene in Jaws, we're just going to do it, right? It's our show. We're going to do whatever the fuck we want. Where they are outside at night, and there are shooting stars in the sky. And it's clearly because, a meteor shower is going on at the time that they are filming it. It is not, an effect that is added. It is, you just kind of randomly see them in the sky, and they caught them on camera. And the person that I went to go see this with, I'm going to call him PB, and Sejin knows who I'm talking about now, got so mad about it. I hate that. I hate that Spielberg felt the need to add that to those scenes. And, we're just sitting in the car, and, he just kept going, and then he calmed down, and I'm like, no, those just happened. That's one of the things that happens when you film outside.
Especially when you're filming on technology that you're not used to that being possible. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. they invented ways to shoot film for this movie. But I always think about that and it being the weirdest things about that. That was one of the coolest things because it was like we saw Idiocracy. Idiocracy is the one that I will always point to, that we went to Cinema World for a midnight showing and it was just the DVD. And that was like kind of a kick in the nuts. Ditto for like Pulp Fiction. I'm pretty sure you were there for at least one of those, right? And if not, then I'm sorry that you weren't. But it's like, oh, okay, we're just watching a DVD. It's cool that we're in a theater. It's cool that there's a bunch of people, especially for something like Idiocracy, which I think made like $300 in its opening weekend when it was released as untitled Mike Judge comedy. Like, we'll talk about Idiocracy someday. So that was cool, but for it to be actual film reels that they had got sent to their theater that were strung up and all that. And like, I knew people, so I got to go up to the projection booth and actually look at original printings of these three movies. And it was fun because E.T., they accidentally did the second reel from the end instead of the beginning. And E.T.'s a real fucking asshole in reverse. Believe it or not, the second reel ends with the whole he heals him with the finger, and then it jumps to the third reel from there. So I got to watch E.T. upside down, because if you're running something backwards, it's going to be upside down, touch Elliot's finger, which then began to bleed profusely, and for solace, Elliot ran to a circular saw blade to be like, maybe this will heal it. Maybe if love hurt me, pain will make me feel better. And these are the things that I always think about whenever I watch Jaws, because they're invariably tied to that moment in a theater, sitting down and getting to watch at least two of my favorite movies. E.T. is one of those ones that I like, but it has such a weird... Like, the first time I ever really saw E.T. and was, like, cognizant of it was the version where all the guns were replaced by walkie-talkies. And it's weird. Yeah. Like, there's something uncanny about the fact that they're holding their walkie-talkies like guns in that one scene. Right? So it is. Yeah. I was going to point to E.T. as I like E.T. as well, but it's not one of my favorites because I think it is a better example than even Jaws of what I'm talking about, where his structure needed work. Like there's some stuff, some long moments in that movie that are too long, I think, and there's not, and then there's like the good stuff. Then the tonal shift is not quite handled as well because that movie has a huge tonal shift. Yeah, but it is better than anybody else is doing it. So like he's still, he still is master of the craft at the time. It's just that you're watching him learn throughout these movies how to really make it. And then, you do get to some of his stuff later, like Saving Private Ryan, I think might be the example where you point to him just getting it right. I mean, that's really interesting because I look at Jaws and I think, this movie goes so fast. But it's a movie that I've seen at least 30 times. So it could be one of those situations where, like, I just know what's happening. Because, like, the first time I saw Hot Fuzz, I felt like this is good, but it's kind of meandering. And then I went to go see it the next day because I told someone I saw Hot Fuzz and I liked it, but I'm feeling some sort of way about it. So let's go see it again and maybe it'll change. And that second viewing, Hot Fuzz finally fell into place for me, where I'm like, oh, I understand all the buildup and why it's important, the way that it's paced, right? It's probably where I developed the phrase deliberately paced when talking about a film. I like Jaws, but then at the same time, it feels real weird that they jump from the death of Chrissy to everybody on the beach and the death of Alex Kintner. Like, and apparently a week has supposed to have passed between those two things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, there. Like I said, there's some stuff there that it's like it doesn't quite hit on all cylinders for me, but it shows where he's going. And again, this is all with the understanding that he's also doing it better than anybody else is doing this kind of stuff. In fact, there's not a lot of people that are even bothering to try to do this sort of thing when he first starts. You know, the kind of effort put into making a hell of a movie out of what is otherwise a silly monster film, like showing that if you're earnest about it and you put that kind of work in, you can still craft some pretty beautiful art out of summer popcorn, right? Like that. He nobody else is even caring to attempt that when he's just like, yeah, but what if though?
Yeah, I mean, this invents an entire. I guess genre. Is summer blockbuster a genre, or is it just an adjective to describe? Which that's maybe the most pretentious thing I've ever asked on this show.
I think that there's definitely people that would talk about it as a genre, but it's a higher umbrella genre with many smaller subgenres that are much more like specific and much more explanatory, you know, because like there's a lot that fits into that, especially nowadays. You know, we've gone so all over the place with what a summer blockbuster can be and become. Well, and when the summer season starts, what counts as a summer blockbuster, when does it end, and when are we in award season? So does the summer blockbuster actually mean that it's an Oscar bait movie? Like we that stuff is all up in the air nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, look at something like in the discussion of what is a summer blockbuster, Barbenheimer, and the fact that everybody was losing their minds over Barbie and Oppenheimer, and it's two summer blockbusters and they're coming out on the same day, right? And then this year, everybody freaking out about Superman, then Fantastic Four, and I think actually Jurassic World comes first. So Jurassic World, Superman, Fantastic Four, First Steps is what's happening in July. And there are people, and granted they're probably marketing people, grassroots marketing people on the internet, who are trying to get people like as hyped up as they were for the Barbie Oppenheimer double feature that you could do because those two films came out on the same day.
Yeah, but completely missing the idea that originally started as people trying to be shitty about like how the audiences for those two movies wouldn't be the same.
Right.
To put it more bluntly, they were saying it's the girls' movie and the boys' movie was essentially how that conversation started, and turning Barbenheimer, like the zeitgeist being like, no, we're not going to let you be assholes about this, and being like, they can coexist. You can go to both. You can be fans of both. You can enjoy both. And so like that becoming the whole like Barbenheimer thing, and then like it went so far up its own ass, it came back around to them being playfully like enemies, you know, frenemies again, talking about like, you know, oh, who's going to go and see what. But like it just, that's lightning in a bottle. That shit's only going to strike once. There's no way they're ever going to capture that again.
But they're certainly not going to, like, by going the Happy Meal, the McDonald's Happy Meal route with Barbie and Oppenheimer of we have a girl's toy and a boy's toy, like, that challenges people too. Because sometimes the girl's toy is still something that males would be interested in or vice versa.
Right. Like, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Is that culture didn't let that conversation stand, and I'm actually
I'm very
impressed
happy
that we did that.
That's a cultural win for modern humanity. But then everybody who's trying to do that same thing with basically 3 summer blockbusters that are all going to be given their week to shine, right? Which is how releases happen now, right? We have the one big release each week, and that's because we want to put it on the IMAX screens. And we want to like develop that FOMO for the viewer so that they feel like, oh, I have to go out and see Mission Impossible this weekend. Otherwise, I won't be able to see it in IMAX because next week is whatever other movie there's going to be. That was probably a bad example because Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible 8 came out on the same day. And a lot of that was like split between, oh, we can only see Lilo and Stitch in IMAX where we live. Oh, we can only see Mission Impossible 8 where we live. That was kind of a closer analog to Barbenheimer without any of the cultural, like, tsunami behind it. But look at something like Sinners, right? Sinners comes out.
Yeah.
Sinners did crazy.
I was gonna say, like, do we talk about Sinners as a summer blockbuster because
came out in friggin' April. I don't.
But it had some vibes and the success that it had and the legs that it's had. I mean, like, people are still talking about wanting to see it in theaters, even though it's now available to like rent.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're talking about doing another re-release, and that makes me super excited, because I love Ryan Coogler as a director. We've talked about it on the show. Like, go see Sinners if you haven't seen Sinners yet. It's available at home now, and it is worth the time. To go back to Jaws, I guess, like, maybe just, like, brief synopsis, because there's some nuance that I feel like kind of gets swept up in the whole. Most people, when they think of the film Jaws, they think about that final third of the movie, where you have three men on an old fishing trawler going up against a behemoth of nature, a supernatural force drawn into the body of a great white shark, right? A 25-footer. Sorry.
Well, and with some smarts on it, which I don't think they ever really talk about in the movie, which I appreciate. I don't want like somebody being like, also it's brain because it's been eating nuclear sludge or something. Like, fuck all that. But there is definitely something to be said about the fact that Bruce has intention in what he does, which is fucking freaky. That is the scariest part of it all. It is the
scariest part about that, because it's not acting the way you would expect an animal to act in that. And it's not even down to the fact that it makes sense that humans in that situation, being hunted by an animal, they would do a lot of anthropomorphizing of the intentions of that animal. But they don't ever have conversations about, like, did you see how it hit the boat last night? It's like it did that on purpose, man. It's got intent. It's out to get us. That conversation doesn't happen until Jaws: The Revenge.
Right, like, which is part of the reason why that movie story
just so ridiculous,
horrendous.
Yeah, right. It's like they don't do that. It's one of those things that like we just get to see it, and then as an audience member, we kind of fill in the blanks of it all. There's no scene.
Creeps out. It's the creepiest part about it. It's the reason why it's not just jump scares. It is like building aching horror in your chest, because you do realize that this thing is like smarter than it should be. Like, it just feels off-putting the entire time.
It'd be something if Matt Hooper was like, yeah, there's some people who believe that sharks would have evolved to be able to open doors, and then they're in the kitchen and the shark's trying to open the door. Also, it's bipedal and walking on land at this point, so like that'd be more impressive than a shark who can open a door. But yeah, so like that's what you think about. You think
in my head it just slams the door open and it's just like it's fucking Jabberjaw. like
it slams the door open and is like, here's Jabby. Nyuk, 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 nyuk. No respect. Oh, Jabberjaw. I think I only like you because of the movie Jaws. I'm gonna be honest with you. No, I also like how Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Shaggy are transposed into Jabberjaw. Like, I think Biff is a little bit smarter than Fred, as opposed to just like, I'm this cool guy who has to hang out with these losers. Because they're all in a band, right? Jabberjaw's a band.
Right. Yeah, Jabberjaw's a band.
And I like Shelley. I like that Shelley is like, Jabberjaw's in love with her, and there's that Jabberjaw where Shelley and Clamhead turn into sharks. Like, that's, you know what? This is, Devin Decker has just unlocked, like, pathos of how my mind works. Because I always wanted there to be an American Dad where Haley's brain got put into the body of a fish, and they eventually did this. Like, this is an episode that eventually happened, and it felt like, thank you, Seth. I appreciate you listening to me while I sleep and talk out loud about what I want to have happen in your shows. But it's because of that episode of Jabberjaw where Shelley becomes the shark, and it kind of makes Jabberjaw's, like, obsession with her. Like, it's not an obsession. He's not fucking creepy about it. He just finds Shelley attractive. And it's so that we as kids are like, oh, Shelley is supposed to be attractive. Like,
yeah, like it's like cute stuff. Yeah. Like she'll kiss him on the cheek and he'll be like fluttery about it, and like that kind of stuff.
Like,
right?
she'll kiss him on the cheek reluctantly. It's like Lucy kissing Snoopy in The Great Pumpkin.
I can't now. I'm gonna just have to listen to fucking Jabberjaw by Payne. After
that Payne song. Oh, I love that song. Thank you, Payne, for the Jabberjaw song. It's going to be in the supplemental materials. And
but you wouldn't have Jabberjaw without Jaws, right?
No, you wouldn't have Jabberjaw without Jaws, because as I joked about, like, Scooby-Doo being one of those, like, things that there's a reference to every day, you don't have the shark show where Scooby-Doo is a talking shark, a talking great white shark, if Jaws doesn't hit the way that it does. Sharks are big at the time. I mean, when did Jabberjaw come out? Like, that is the question. I think it's 1976. That is what my brain is yelling at me right now.
Yeah, all right, man.
My brain is also telling me to, like, you need to calm down, Devin. You need to just, like, reserve yourself a little bit. Jabberjaw is 1976. Oh, God. To 1978. One season of the show. Jesus.
Yeah, fucking 16. That always gets me when I remember this shit, and I think, oh man, I watched so much Jabberjaw growing up. There was only 16 episodes. I was probably just watching the same 16 episodes over and over and over again.
Yep, and they're super good. And also, now I feel a little bit bad because Jabberjaw premiered September 11th, 1976. I guess going forward, I'll never forget. I also like that Zorak is the bad guy in the second episode of Jabberjaw. Like, like that's something I like. I like that part of it. I'm going to be honest with you.
Nice. Man.
Oh, man. But yeah, so, yeah, no, you don't have Jabberjaw without Jaws. They're like, Scooby-Doo is doing well. What if we make Scooby-Doo a shark? All right, but he has to be hanging out with a band. All right, fine.
Yeah. But, like, it is honestly that. It's like, we want another Scooby-Doo style show, and sharks are big right now because of Jaws. So, like, let's make a cartoon.
So let's start working on it. I mean, they go see Jaws. Hanna-Barbera go see Jaws on June 20th,
holding
1975. Of course, holding hands. If you could think of a better way to exchange long protein strains, Sejan, I'd like to hear it. That's deep in there, huh? Sorry. They go see Jaws on June 20th, 1975, when it premieres in theaters, and then they go back to their studio and go, we need to make Scooby-Doo a shark. And then everyone who's there who didn't get to go see the movie on June 20th because they were busy drawing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of cells of Scooby-Doo and Shaggy eating giant sandwiches are like, why the fuck do we gotta make it a shark? And they're like, we'll let you all out of your animator's pen next Wednesday and you'll understand. Turns out I have a lot of heavy politics wrapped up in my thoughts about Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, man. Fucking hell.
But yeah. So talking about the movie as this film where most people think about the end of the film, right? And let's be honest, there's a thing, because in the cable days, when you'd catch a film on cable, like, you rarely caught a movie from the beginning. So you probably more than likely saw the end of Jaws more than you saw the complete package of Jaws, right? That's one of the things that I will give a gold star to, like, the streaming environment. First of all, the fact that, like, I don't know if Cox does it, but Verizon does it, so I don't know if Comcast or any of those. And you're the worst resource to ask because you've been a cord cutter for almost 50 years, Sejan. Is the fact that if you put on a movie that they also have available on demand, they will give you the option to start the film from the beginning on demand.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's nice. And then, yes, we talk about the paralysis of choice with streaming platforms and the fact that rather than having, the 10 videos that you have on your shelf to pick from, you literally have thousands upon thousands that are available to you right now on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or Paramount Plus or Peacock or Tubi. But once you're able to pick something on streaming, more than likely you're gonna watch it from the beginning, right? Yeah. It's not like Netflix has a neat little feature where they're like, randomly start this movie like 12 minutes in. I gotta tell you though, the person, and I was thinking about this yesterday, the person who's able to perfect imperfections with streaming would probably be like a millionaire. Because some people
Well, the
want
funny
them.
part is you can find a lot of long videos on YouTube where they do kind of do this. Now, granted, it's probably born from the fact that if they don't put the whole movie up, then they're not getting called out, like they're not getting
Right.
caught by AI that's looking for certain things, and like they'll string multiple movies together so that and they'll just start it up 20 minutes in, and then it'll fade out about 30 minutes later, and then it'll start another movie up 20 minutes in. They do this a lot with kids cartoons. They'll do compilations like that,
Yeah.
where they'll do like 5-minute segments, and then 10-minute segments, and then 2-minute segments, where they just fade in and out of like various Mickey Mouse things. Again, just so that people can get around like getting caught by the robots. And there's tons of that sort of stuff. But it feeds that exact same feeling for people, is that idea of like, yeah, this is just kind of on in the background, and it kind of just came up at my favorite part, and it goes away before I cared about the rest of this movie.
Right? It comes out at that part where, like, man, there was always a commercial right before Marty tried to go back to the future. Right? Like, I'd see the scene where the tree branch falls and the cable breaks, and then it'd go to commercials and it'd be like, come on down to Wendy's for our new bacon cheeseburger. Bacon.
Yeah, and they know you're going to have to wait now at this point to see what happens.
But no, Devin, it's time to go to karate, or we have to leave for your grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. So, like, that's where I saw until I'm Back to the Future that day. So when I'm watching...
So bitter about Thanksgiving with Grandma.
Look, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that once I started working and I no longer had the expectation that I would be at Grandma's for Thanksgiving, that is when my life started to get fucking fantastic. It was spectacular. Oh, I work at the movie store, so they expect me there all day because entertainment doesn't take a break. And really, it's the fact of like, all right, who doesn't want to work Thanksgiving? I'll cover for you. Like, it wasn't even about the fact that, yes, I am getting time and a half for this 17-hour day that I'm working at the Blockbuster video. Don't you forget it. But also the fact that...
Jaws on and...
usually I had to watch. One of the reasons why I hate it is the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special. I'd always work with somebody who's like, can we watch the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special? And I'm like, fucking toast and popcorn is not Thanksgiving dinner. And goddamn it, Peppermint Patty is such a dick to Charlie Brown in this.
Hey man, they had jelly beans.
That's true. They also have pretzel sticks. God, we know a lot about the Peanuts Thanksgiving special. Is that why we're friends? But yeah, so there's animosity. Also, because of that one Thanksgiving where I was going to watch the end of Back to the Future, and it's time to go. Right? Like, it all loops together, Sejin. That was the Christmas I got Back to the Future on VHS, though, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that also leapt me forward in terms of my development as a human being. But to go back to what Jaws starts with, you start with Martin Brody, who is the chief of police on a New England island, like, resort sort of town. Right? It's not Martha's Vineyard, despite the fact that it was shot on Martha's Vineyard. They talk about Cape Cod. Wow, that was super New England. I apologize.
Yeah, no, man, that came out. I loved it.
That just happened. They talk about Cape Cod. They talk about the Hamptons. They talk about Long Island. They talk about all these other sort of resorts, sort of towns that are kind of cannibalizing their business. And he has moved there as a former New York City police officer because he felt like he couldn't do any good in New York anymore. Like, there's just so much corruption. There's so much crime. There's nothing that I can do as a single police officer. But if I go and become like a big fish in the small pond that is Amity Island Police, I will feel like I make a difference. So, like, he's there as somebody who's already got a chip on his shoulder, wanting to kind of save the world. And when he couldn't save the world that was as big and as dangerous as New York City, he found a smaller world where he could be their savior. And then as if God laughed at Martin Brody, he brought him a huge frickin' supervillain to have to deal with in the form of Bruce, the Great White Shark.
You wanted something, you wanted a problem to solve? Here's a problem to solve.
So this shark comes, and the film opens up with these hippies on the beach. And, like, let's talk about the fact that we said that it's a horror film. It's two young kids who are going to have sex outside of marriage. And the woman, which if this were an Adam Sandler, that'd probably be my blue, or at least my guess for what Sejan's blue would be, is the fact that Chrissy is punished for wanting to have premarital sex with, I think his name's Greg. I don't know the name of that guy. Maybe Gary. Greg.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, it is pure slasher, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It is like these two kids sneak off from a party so that they can go fool around, and they get got by the big bad, and like it is pure slasher film. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's Sean is the other Brody child, by the way. It's Michael and Sean. Now, they're just as I'm going through trying to find out if Greg's name is Greg, because I can't imagine his name is Greg. I don't know where I got that from. But then you go through the quotes page.
All the Gregs out there.
I mean, Greg's got some other stuff going on. Like, he's one of those characters where you're just like, ugh, you're kind of gross. Because he's like, hey, I called you, didn't I? Why do you think I killed her? I called the cops when I passed out on the beach and she probably drowned, which would still technically be my fault. But let's not talk about it. I called you. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a total jerk, but it's a scene, man. So that is the first thing. And they find Chrissy's body. They find Christine Walken's body, and Carl Gottlieb. What is his name in this film? I feel so bad because, like, I know 4 people's names. I know 5. I know Ellen's name as well. Like, off the top of my head, no problem. But Meadows, the deputy of this. I mean, it's a police department of 3, and 2 of them are officers. The third is Polly, the administrative assistant to the police force. And come 4th of July, they're going to have some auxiliary officers who come to work on the island, but most of the time it is Brody and Meadows who are responsible for keeping Amity Island safe. And Meadows finds her body, and what Carl Gottlieb does in that moment, like, we don't see it. We never see Chrissy Walken's, I guess, masticated body. Like, we hear Hooper describe it as he's looking through, because initially they put it down as a shark attack, but then the medical examiner, because of the power that Mayor Larry Vaughn has, convinces him to change his diagnosis to a boating accident. And then Matt Hooper comes in from the Oceanographic Society on land and demands to see the body of the first victim. And, God, does he splash just pure alcohol on his face in that moment? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like it's just a bowl of, like, isopropyl alcohol that he has to, like, douse his face with after just... I mean, unable to determine the height and weight of the body based on the remains that are present. Huge tissue loss and damage. Like, it's only ever described to us. So they do this really good job. I mean, there's that old trope with monster movies where, like, tell don't show is better in that one particular thing, because being told about how terrifying the monster is, your imagination picks up where the film leaves off. And
it's a hard balance. It's a really hard balance to strike in monster movies, because there's also that part of your audience that wants to see the monster, wants to see the gore. You know, like it's a really interesting conversation that horror directors have to have, because show don't tell is kind of the golden rule in storytelling everywhere, right? I mean, in any aspect. So how do you, in a medium that really relies on spectacle, do that, right? And another thing that this movie does extremely well.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that it does. The stuff that you see, when you finally see the shark, it is scary. That first, you're going to need a bigger boat moment where Brody is chumming the water, and he just kind of pops up and is like, hello there, and then goes back under the water.
Hello.
Hello. Howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Which, again, there's a Jaws reference. I'm sorry. Freaking Finding Nemo in 2004, with Bruce being the shark's name. Also, I'm reminded of One Crazy Summer, 11 years after Jaws come out, with the rabid dolphin movie that's being shot in Hyannis.
Fucking Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers does the really great episode all about Bruce and
the
Teddy
land shark,
in the
right?
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, they just... It's everywhere. Like, I'm trying to struggle to think about something that does not make some reference to Jaws. It's just, it surrounds us and it consumes us, much like the Force. Perhaps the Force is the film Jaws, and that's what George Lucas was talking about before Metachlorians.
Yeah.
Before Metachlorians, the Force is Jaws. Yeah, okay, I can deal with that. Thanks.
Well, and then the hard swing into religion that the last three do with it.
And into religion and podcasting. Let's not forget that essentially the Last Skywalker is Emperor Palpatine has started a podcast.
Just another white guy who thinks everybody wants to hear his opinions.
And people so do not want to hear his opinions that they mount an attack to murder him. Oh, goodness. It's fun. It's fun. But yeah, so that whole thing. So Martin is this thing. He is given the challenge of fighting the shark. But then in addition to that, this film really succeeds. I remember being a kid being like, is there ever going to be a movie where there's no villain? And my mother's like, every movie needs a villain. And then the nuance that I learned through that was that the villain doesn't need to be Snidely Whiplash, twirling his mustache, demanding the rent. Conflict is the ultimate villain. And someone like Martin Brody, first of all, he is an outsider to this environment. So it's a little bit of man versus environment right there, because like they're all like, oh, this big fucking New York guy comes in and he's like, we gotta close the beaches because of a little shark attack. So everybody's fighting him there. There's man versus man with the fight with him and Larry Vaughn to shut the beaches. There's man versus nature in the very nature of the fact that Jaws, Bruce the shark, is nature, like incarnate, coming to consume and hurt this place where he has become the protector of. And then there's...
dude, the description of Bruce in the preview is so good. the original preview for it's like 12 paragraphs long of just an uncaring killer created by God to bring justice to Earth. It's the craziest fucking monologue about, and the entire time it's just a camera underwater.
They sold this movie in just beautiful ways. But then there's also the man versus self of it, because Brody has his own hangups, primarily the fact that he lives on an island and he's afraid of the water.
Such a good, I mean, like, it is screenwriting 101, right? Is to like give your character a major fault and have them have to face it, right? And so like if your character's afraid of heights, they better end up on the top of a building at some point, right?
Exactly, right? Or if your character's afraid of snakes, he winds up in a pit full of snakes.
Yeah.
Why did it have to be snakes?
But I will say this for Indiana Jones, right? And it very much doesn't become him fighting a giant snake at the end, right? Whereas this is like straight up, he's in a boat sinking into the water, and he's got like one bullet left style. Like, if this doesn't do it, I'm fucked.
He's got one bullet left, but he's still like commercially thinking enough to have a pithy catchphrase.
Oh my God!
He takes that final shot. Smile, you son of a. And I love that Chekhov is making oxygen tanks now. Chekhov brand oxygen tanks.
So that's what was it? Was it an oxygen tank or was it the tank of poison? I couldn't figure out what it was.
So it's an oxygen tank. Is the fact
no,
that
the poison was in a vial earlier.
Yeah,
okay,
the poison
yes, yeah.
They show the shark dart.
I was watching it this time and I was like, oh, maybe it's not oxygen after all. But no,
it's very clearly one of the scuba tanks, and it's one of those situations where like it's strange that they would bring two, right? Like only one person is scuba certified, though I don't know if that existed in 1975 or like, you could just hook a tank of oxygen to your back and go underwater.
I will say right here that there are many situations in which it's always a good idea to bring a backup. If I'm going under the fucking water, I'm bringing 2 tanks of oxygen with me.
He brings up a good point, but it's fun. But it's also one of those situations so that we can have Hooper, who, spoilers, historically dies in the novel, have that little moment where you think he's gone, and then, oh, thank God there's another oxygen tank so that we can blow the shark up, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just, but it is. But the whole thing was, sorry, I got distracted by the fact that I did, at the 113 mark, crack open a Gansett and crush it like Quint. Hopefully the Foley came through for you listening at home. Sejan was giggling in quite a wonderful way. Like, one of the things that does make this film work is where in most films you get man versus one of, I think it's 9, right? Like the last time that they talked about the conflicts that man can deal with, it's 9 is what the breakdown is. Am I crazy for that? Or
what do you I don't know what you're saying right now. It sounds like you're talking about like a conspiracy theory.
No, it's not like a conspiracy theory. It's like the people who analyze literature and storytelling. Like when we were in high school, I was taught about the 5 types of conflict, which is self, man, nature, environment, and I don't even remember what the 5th one I was taught in an English class was. And then I remember like looking
probably something mental.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, maybe it's just like fear,
Earth, wind,
like
fire.
Fear, and it is Earth, wind. I mean, September's terrifying. You're just sitting there, and then suddenly you remember September. Oh my goodness, I hate myself. Man versus conflicts. Examples. Okay.
We're just doing some straight up.
I'll Google it. What the heck? Man versus society, nature, fate, technology, supernatural, and self are the ones that, granted, this is the AI overview, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I mean, that's really interesting because like that means environment has like technically been changed from the term environment to society, but I guess that makes more sense than having environment and nature, because like they're sort of the same thing, right? The societal environment is very different when you have a bunch of people who are questioning what you're doing because you're not from them, right? Or you have the fish out of water, the stranger in a strange land. That's more man versus society, whereas man versus nature is literally you are dealing with a threat that is nature in, like, it'd be like the perfect storm is man versus nature, or Jaws is them fighting the shark, which represents the nature. And that really makes me happy that man versus supernatural is now considered one of the external conflicts, because that leads a whole lot of credence into what makes a superhero in my book. Like, none of the people in this movie are superheroes. I'm just going to say that. But Indiana Jones is a superhero because he is a man who deals with supernatural threats. That makes him a superhero in my book. I think I can fit that in here, right? It's a Steven Spielberg flick.
Yeah, sure. Oh, man.
But yeah, so that's the whole thing, is he is there and he wants to do it, but he has to deal with Larry Vaughn being like, the beaches need to be open, because if the beaches aren't open, then we'll make no money, and these people make money on the summer tourism. And it's one of those situations where if they just dealt with the shark from the beginning, the shark would have been dealt with. Like, how long do you think they're on the orca? Like, real talk Sunday, on a Sunday. Released on next Monday.
I guess probably a few days, right?
Like, we really only see, I think, one night, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, we see, but but I get the impression that by that point it's already been a night or two, right? And then we see that night, and then all the events of the next day. Yeah, I've always gotten the impression that it was somewhere in the 4 to 5 day range, I guess.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, on July 4th is when the attack happens that kills, I mean, another classic slasher trope, like the creepy old guy. And he's not an old guy, but he gives off like weird sort of vibes. The guy who's alone in the pond with the young boys who are trying to sail their boat. Like, you boys all right over there? I got some gin rummy over here and chocolate bars in my van. That's what I call the boat. Like, he's a little strange. So he's another one who loses it. And then, like, Mrs. Kintner, right? Like, is she a single mother? Like, did she have Alex out of wedlock or things like that? Like, I have questions about why she is punished in terms of the morality that we know exists at, like, the core of the horror genre. Approaching Jaws as a horror movie, Chrissy dies because of the premarital sex of it all. Alex Kintner dies as punishment to his mother, right? Which is terrible, right? Like, it's a terrible thing. But it's things that happen in slasher films and in horror films. Is the kid who dies because the parent... It hurts the parent more to have them lose the child due to their neglect than it would to have that parent die and leave a child without an orphan. And then that guy who's, like, kind of being creepy to those kids dies... And then, like, I don't know why Ben Harper has to die. I mean, not Ben Harper. Ben Gardner has to die. Because he's not really doing anything crazy. He's...
No, I think what you're pointing to is the shift kind of throughout into slowly it not being that kind of movie anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Is like, it starts by kind of playing by those rules, and then very slowly over time develops its own.
Yeah.
And becomes its own thing.
Yes. And it works. But on July 4th is when the attack happens. Everybody's at the beach. Everybody is fearful to go into the water, still spending money. But the news is there. That's Peter Benchley as the interviewer, who's like, we're here on Amity Island. Amity means friendship and all that bullshit. So it is very highly publicized, that attack. And that is when Brody says, you're going to sign this. I'm going to hire Quint. We're going to deal with this fucking shark because I'm tired of it. So if that's July 4th, right? Here's the greatest part about Jaws. This is the weirdest thing that I'm going to say. Because it happened 50 years ago, the calendar is exactly the same as it is in 2025. 50 years... the calendars repeat. They repeat before that, but 50 years, that's a fun little, like, tip that you can know, is that Sunday is it the 14th today? Is it June 14th? I feel like such a fool, CJ. It's June 15th, right? Sunday, June 15th in 1975 was also Sunday, June 15th. Like, that's the thing to note. So Alex Kintner dies on Sunday, June 29th. So then the 4th of July happens on that Friday. If he gets it signed on the 4th and hires Quint on the 5th, and they do not leave until the 6th, right? That gives them a day to prepare everything. It gives Matt Hooper time to get all of his, some kind of half-assed astronaut, like, equipment to Amity Island. They leave on the 6th. And then at the end of the movie, when they're swimming back to shore, and he goes, what day is it? Wednesday, I think. No, Tuesday. That would mean that it is Tuesday the 8th. Because there is absolutely no way that they are out in that ocean hunting Bruce for a week. There's no way that it's July 15th. Because, like, the radio conversation when Ellen calls the ship and is like, can I talk to Martin? And he's like, oh, hey, Mrs. Brody, we just got a couple of stripers. Haven't seen anything yet, but we should be home for supper time. And then he just, like, breaks the fucking radio because he's got space madness a la Steve Buscemi and Armageddon. Remember, a lot of things are going to be Armageddon coded for me recently. Like... they're making it seem like they're just going out for a couple of days. It does not seem like the plan is, and by all accounts, like, they have that discussion where, like, we'll go in at night, like, because they're not that far out. One of the very important things that they try to indicate to the audience is that a territorial rogue shark like Bruce is feeding close to land. Like, he's not out in open ocean, which is why it is so scary.
Isn't it something like 10 feet that they point to? As long as it's 3 feet deep or something?
Yeah,
then shark can...
Most shark attacks happen 10 feet from the shore in 3 feet of water. Like, that's the numbers that they give you. So that's why it's one of those scary moments when they're on the orca and Brody says, maybe we should start trying to lead him inland instead of letting this shark take us further and further out to sea. Because that's like one of those other moments where, like, this shark knows what it's doing. Because if it gets them out in open ocean, they got no fucking chance of stopping this thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Which is why when he's got 3 barrels on him, not with 3 barrels, he'll not go under with 3 barrels. It's like, we're going to run him towards the shore and drown him. Because, excuse me, oh God, those 4 Narragansetts are starting to repeat on me. I apologize. It is one of those situations where sharks, if they don't move, like, water doesn't flow through their gills and they suffocate. And if they bring him so far ashore with that added buoyancy of those barrels that are stuck to him via harpoon, it won't be able to move in shallower water, and it will die. It will literally drown despite being an aquatic animal. So they can't be that far out. And it even feels like, we'll be coming in every night after we hunt for this shark. And one of the reasons they don't come in that first night where they're drinking the apricot brandy and show me the way to go home happens, and the whole, now this is permanent. And I love that moment where Brody looks at his little accident, which, like, he was clearly stabbed, right? Like, I think that's what it's supposed to represent, is that he was stabbed in New York, which is just great show don't tell, like, narrative stuff for the character of Martin Brody. Like, sorry.
Yeah, I have you run out of red string yet?
Oh, for my conspiracy? No, man, I just got a whole thing of it. Joanne Fabrics closed, Sejan, and I bought up all the red string they had.
You did some real math there, bud. I'm very proud of you.
This is my curse, Sejan, and very rarely do I go this deep on the show. There are a couple of times where I've, like, calculated. Like, if we go back to our Groundhog Day episode, I did the calculations as to how long he was there and how it would work based on what we saw. And I've done the crazy math guy before. This is my beautiful mind at work, not a Spielberg movie. Tying it together, because as soon as, like, we release this episode is releasing to you, let me just confirm before I say anything, but I think this is coming out for consumption on the 23rd of June. That is our plan, is to do it on the 23rd of June. And that's because, as mentioned earlier, June 20th is when Jaws first premiered in theaters. So the official 50th anniversary has passed 3 days ago before this is released to you for consumption. But initially, what got it pumping is, we'll finally do the Jaws. I was like, maybe we'll do it close to Independence Day, because, like, for this family, July 4th is where we get drunk and full of hot dogs and hamburgers and Americana and sit down and watch Jaws to end the night. I'm not sure why I went Southern there. I really should have gone more Harvard Yard.
Drunk and full of hot dogs is my favorite. It's my favorite Limp Bizkit album.
Oh, man. Yeah, full of hot dogs and chocolate starfish. But then when Sejan was like, I'm not going to be available to record on the 29th, I'm like, fuck, that's when Alex Kintner dies, is on June 29th. But we're doing it on the 23rd because it's like that first death, when Kintner comes to him after they've caught the tiger shark, because that's another thing that's just incredible about this movie, is they have that bait and switch moment where Kintner's mother puts up a $3,000 reward for the death of the shark that killed her son. And so it brings in a bunch of like shark hunters. Did you see all those license plates out there? Connecticut, Rhode Island, even New York. Like, you have that great. I don't know why he sounds like Don Knotts from freaking the Andy Griffith Show, but that's what Carl Gottlieb brings to the character of Meadows, is that sort of Barney Fife attitude.
No, it's more Gomer Pyle. Well, golly!
Golly! I don't know about all them license plates out there, Chief. So they bring all these people who hunt and find a tiger shark, which makes me smile because, like, street sharks, right? Street sharks finally got mentioned. I told you I could go 90 minutes without talking about the street shark Sejan. You owe me a cookie. The street sharks are historically a great white shark in Ripster, a tiger shark in Streaks, a hammerhead in Jab, and a whale shark in Big Slamoo. So there's no whale shark in this movie, but the great white of Bruce is there. They capture a tiger shark that is so fucking good when Hooper's like, excuse me, and he's measuring the bite radius, and he's like, that's not our fucking shark, man. That's not our fucking shark. I also love when the guys like have 12 dudes on a boat that like conservatively is meant for 4, and he's like, the sheriff wanted me to tell you that you're overloading your boat. All right, well, they're gonna die. And he just walks away whistling like, well, I tried to warn the morons. It's beautiful stuff. It really is just this beautiful little movie.
It's very New England, actually.
It's so New England. Like, I tried. I did what I could. Where is there a good restaurant or hotel? Yeah, just start walking that way. All right, you're all gonna die. Like, it works. But they find that tiger shark, and it's this great bait and switch because even Brody is like, fuck, our long, strange, adventure with a shark on Amity Island is finally come to an end. And then Hooper, being the intellectual, representing yuppie culture in this 1975 film. Like, that's fully what he's supposed to represent. And in the book, which I'm really happy is not in the movie, he fucking sleeps with Ellen Brody. Like, Ellen cheats on Martin. Like, really kind of conveying the whole man versus self of his character and his inadequacy and the way that he feels being. I can't fuck on an island, Ellen. I'm sorry. I'm not impotent. I just don't like being on an island. I'm afraid of the water. I don't know why that's my Martin Brody, but that's what you got, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so he's this yuppie character. He's supposed to be the rich know-it-all. He's basically Frasier from Cheers. I don't know what was going through the minds of the three, I can't think of their names now, the Charles brothers and Brooks at the time that they introduced Frasier, but I would not be surprised if they're like, what if he's kind of like Hooper from Jaws, but a psychiatrist instead of a marine biologist? There's also something really nice about the fact, now we're talking Seinfeld connected to Jaws, that George Costanza wears the same glasses as Matt Hooper. Like, that's my favorite thing about that character. So, like, with the fact that he's a marine biologist in that episode where he lies about it, I believe the episode's called The Marine Biologist. And the whole time he has had very similar glasses to Matt Hooper from Jaws. First of all, I would totally believe that a character like George Costanza goes to his optometrist or lens crafters and's like, can you give me the Matt Hooper glasses?
Can you give me the Richard Dreyfuss?
Yeah, right? Yeah. But then the fact that he eventually becomes a marine biologist. So that's like what that is. And I do. Because he is meant to be this upper crust. That whole thing where he's like, this stuff's expensive, right? Who pays for this? The Institute? No, I do. So, like, you're rich then? Yeah. How rich? Like, me personally or the family? And it's just like, oh, I want to punch you. I just want to punch you in the jaw, Matt Hooper. But to go back to that tiger shark scene, that's when Alex Kintner's mom comes back, Mrs. Kintner, never given a first name, because women do not matter in this movie. It is sort of a disappointing fact about pretty much all of the Jaws movies up until Jaws the Revenge, where Ellen Brody is weirdly the main character in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, women exist to die or to suffer because of a death. It's not great. It's filmmaking in the 70s. Let's be completely honest about it. For all the fact that she is Diane fucking Keaton, look at how Kay is treated in the Godfather films. Like a fucking prop. But yeah, so she comes up and she slaps Brody in the face and says, there was a death a week before Alex's and you did nothing. Which means, if that's to be believed, the first death, Christine Watkins, died on June 22nd, the day when we would have been recording this episode for release on the 23rd. So, like, it all kind of works. I'm doing more. I opened up the beautiful mind part of my mind to Siege, and I apologize for that. Let's talk Jaws. What do you want to talk about Jaws?
I mean, we've talked a lot about Jaws.
We have talked a lot about Jaws. I'd like to get to the 2 hour and 4 minute mark on this episode, though. So, like, that's where we're at. So, I know something we haven't talked about yet that is like one of those things that really feels like a bad hat on top of a bad hat, Harry. And that is Quint's whole origin for why he is, by all accounts, a shark hunter.
Yeah.
That's his job, right?
This wild character, yeah.
Black eyes, like a doll's eyes. God, Always Sunny, when Charlie Day does that whole speech, just wonderful. But the fact that, so Quint, who's just like kind of this crazy old man character. If we're talking something like Friday the 13th, which just passed, right? Friday the 13th was this past Friday. The fact that it's the 15th of June today. The Harbinger character, like the old guy where they're like, you're all doomed, as they're going to Camp Crystal Lake. That's essentially what Quint is playing in this movie. And it's like, What if the dude who warns you that you're all gonna die eventually becomes your third main character? Because that scene where they're in like the common room of the town hall where he scratches down the blackboard and is like, I could that and it is such great Foley work, right? Steven Spielberg could be remembered for nothing else in his long and illustrious career. Hopefully, he is not only remembered for finding and bringing Rachel Zegler to the world with his open casting call for his frankly unnecessary remake of West Side Story. But that's another discussion for another time. But if he were going to be remembered for anything, that sound of Quint's nails on a chalkboard, it haunts my dreams. It is also just so
very often portrayed in, like, I think they do a bit in The Simpsons with it, and they do a bit probably on Futurama too.
Yeah, they've done so. It is one of the most like it's referenced from this film, right? But that whole thing and the speech he gives there, that speech in just a basic horror film would be that guy where they stop to get the gas on the way to Camp Crystal Lake. And I think it's Friday the 13th part 2 that happens, right? I don't think it's the first one, because the first one is Pam Voorhees as the killer. Spoilers for Friday the 13th. Where he's like, you're all doomed. And then that's famously recreated in Cannibal the Musical. Like, that's his character, but then it's like, oh, we're going to hire that guy, and now suddenly you're spending the final third of this film with this guy who was just, like, scary. And I think the part that I liked the most, before we get to his full-on origins as to why he became like the world's foremost shark hunter in Amity Island, Massachusetts. Let's make that distinction important there. Is the fact that he's so weirdly kind to Martin in these ways that I really like. Like, he does not like Hooper. And I understand why he doesn't like Hooper. Hooper's a bit of a know-it-all. And, you know, he has that whole scene where he's like, you have city hands, Mr. Hooper. You've never worked a ship. And then he's like, tie me a boatswain knot, or whatever he asked him to tie. A sheepshank. Tie me a sheepshank. You didn't tell me how long, that whole thing. It's been a while since I've had to prove basic seamanship, which is... I love that line. I know what it means, but I also just love that line coming out of Richard Dreyfuss's mouth. And sorry. But like, so he does not like Matt Hooper, and that's it. But there's that nice scene on the boat where Brody pulls the wrong rope, and he's like, Chief, going forward, just ask me which rope to pull. Like, don't just try to guess. Like, I'm here to help you. I know you're outside of your element. I know you don't like the water. I will try to make this experience as painless for you as I possibly can. And it's such a nice, like, detail for his character, because they didn't need to do that, right? He could have just been as annoyed with Martin Brody because he's a landlubber, right? To use the parlance of the seaman. And... hate myself.
Yeah, but I think that I think that he respects what Brody is doing. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Like, I think that's what it comes down to, is that, like, the part of the reason that he hates Hooper so much is because of the fact that he's a fucking putz and he's not really focused on what they need to be focused on, which is killing this thing, right? But he respects that Brody's goal is, like, I'm going to overcome all of this shit to make sure that these people are safe. He just recognizes the nobility in that, I think.
Yeah. It's the moment where he's like, maybe I should just go out alone. And he's like, no, it's my charter. I'm going with you because I need to be there to stop this thing, right? I need to prove to all these islanders that I'm one of them. Because there's that great speech where Ellen's like, well, why can't I be an islander? Because you weren't born on the island. And that sort of gatekeeping is real. That stuff persists 50 years later. I don't know if you've ever been to one of these like environments. It was when
Block Island is a lot like that.
Yeah. When I interviewed for that community theater on Hyannis, because they needed a lighting designer, and then they offered, my payment was $50 for the entire 6 weeks and a couch to sleep on. I couldn't afford that. I'm just going to be honest about that. So I politely turned them down. And I'm not exaggerating there. I actually politely turned them down. But that was such a weird thing. All of these people who are like, oh no, I'm Hyannis born. Like, you don't understand. And I'm like, I don't know. I've been coming here pretty much all my life. I get that I wasn't born here, but like, I'm not from another planet. I'm from New England. I understand tourism's importance and things.
I'm from, like, less than an hour down the highway. Like,
yeah, exactly. We both took 195 in order to get here. You from your job on the mainland, me from my home on the mainland. Yeah, just one of those situations, right? It's one of those things that you don't really...
No, for sure.
Yeah.
We used to... We had a friend that owned some vacation property on Block Island, so we would go out every summer for a couple of nights. And, you know, you'd always get it from people that, like, you were just the seasonal folk. You weren't the islanders. You weren't the people working there. You were visiting. And, you know, it was in true New England fashion. Nobody was ever malicious with that information. They were just happy to remind you of it every moment.
Yeah. That used to really happen with Newport, too. And I don't know if it stopped, but I do remember, like, going to Newport when I was younger, sort of getting that vibe. And I don't know if it's because, like, Newport wants to be a year-round tourist place now, so they've just kind of toned that down. Because you're right, it's never malicious. It's never, like, outright rude. But it's still kind of a turnoff when people treat you that way. And it's like, bitch, we're still living in the same state. right?
It's okay. You're not from around here. I'll be like, I'm kind of from around here. Come on.
Yeah, what do you mean I'm not from around here? I live 30 minutes that way. And I didn't feel the need to pack a lunch in an overnight bag to come visit your little goat island. Oh, man, if there's ever going to be an episode that turns the whole of New England against Devin Decker, it's going to be our 50th anniversary celebration of the film Jaws. And honestly, it's about damn time. But yeah, so Quint. I hate that I do that all the time. Quint, we get to hear, they have that great scene of like, I feel my head, that's permanent. Or he takes out his tooth. And the thresher cuts on the leg. And I don't remember the shark that cuts up Hooper's leg. And it's that great scene where they're just like sharing their war wounds. And then it's so well directed. Right? Like, that's the beauty of that scene where they're just in the cabin of the orca having a conversation. Is that... Yeah. He's laughing about the whole, I'll show you this one. This is a permanent injury. And he points to his heart and he goes, Dad, Mary Ellen, she broke my heart. And they all laugh, right? About like how much a woman can hurt you in that moment, right? Even though we're big, strong men, we still have sensitive sides and women can break our hearts too. And then they're laughing about that. And he makes the joke about the scar that's on Quint's arm. And he goes, that's a tattoo I had to have removed. And he goes, let me guess, mother. And he does that insane Richard Dreyfuss laugh, which I guess we could just call it that Richard Dreyfuss laugh at this point, right? Knowing everything that we know. And Quint just like softly, gently puts his hand on his arm to tell him this is not something that we're going to laugh about. I understand that we were having a good time, but we have gotten to the serious part of tonight's like events. And he tells the story of how he was on the USS Indianapolis, which was one of the naval ships that was tasked with delivering an atomic bomb to the Pacific Theater during World War II. Specifically the bomb that landed on Hiroshima, which I believe was Fat Man, right? Because Fat Man fell first and then Little Boy, right? I don't claim to be a World War II historian. I know that I'm almost 40, so it's going to happen. I'll wake up one day and it'll be like a werewolfian transformation where suddenly I care about World War II. I kid. And I have nothing but respect for people who do. There's so many still untold stories of the war that was World War II. And thank goodness for it, right? Because World War II movies are excellent. But he tells this story of how he was on the Indianapolis. They deliver the bomb. That's going to be dropped on Hiroshima, ultimately ending World War II, right? Ultimately one of the steps that leads to the end of World War II. And then as their ship is leaving, where they've dropped off the boat, they get hit with a torpedo and they go into the water. That the boat sinks in 12 minutes, which is just insane. Think about how large like a naval vessel is, and it's in the water within 12 minutes. And they're out there, and there's like, I think 1,100 souls go into the water at the time that the boat sinks. 7,000 souls aboard, right, is I think what he says. So like already from the attack, like almost 6,000 men, like United States naval people die in this story. And then 1,100 are in the water. And then suddenly, because they're in Pacific waters, warm Pacific waters, they start to get attacked by sharks. And the sharks, he tells us, it's this whole chilling story about how they had to like clump themselves together, and hopefully the guy on the outside, when he's attacked, he could fight the shark off, but if not, he's taken and the rest of the clump survives because of his sacrifice. And that the sharks were like killing 6 men per hour, and that this mission to drop off the atomic bomb was so secret that there was no rescue coming. Right? A week after, they still had not wondered where that boat was, because nobody knew that boat was even supposed to be there. And he tells this whole story about eventually a helicopter comes, and that was the scariest part of the whole ordeal for me, was waiting for my turn to be rescued from the water, right? Because there's vibrations from the helicopters drawing more sharks, and he's just sitting there, and he has that line, "I'm never going to put on a life preserver again." Because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be alive waiting to be rescued ever again. And it comes in nicely, right? It is that sort of like foreshadowing where he throws life preservers to Brody and to Hooper, but he does not put on one for himself. And he's like 1,100 souls went into the water, 316 made it out alive. And I get it. I understand why that is not something you want on your skin anymore. Why you'd get that tattoo removed. Because it's not camaraderie. It is a time where the country that you have sworn to defend left you to fend for yourself. And think of all the comrades and brothers in arms, your band of brothers that you lose. And it is chilling. It's this chilling whole freaking soliloquy in the middle of this essentially horror movie where you're like waiting for sharks to come and kill these three guys who are in that shark's domain. Sorry,
but it also then beautifully sets up backstory for why he's afraid of the water, why this is
that's not he's afraid of the water. It's why he hunts sharks. It's because they killed his men. They don't want, and because Brody's more afraid of the water.
It's Brody's afraid of the water, not Quint. Quint is
okay.
right. Yeah, sorry, but it sets up backstory is what I'm getting at. Is like this whole thing where he's like he just has this really deep kind of like almost religious need to do this, right?
Yeah, it's his purpose. It's his purpose with the rest of his life, the life that he was able to have after this horrifying ordeal where he watched his fellow soldiers die, fellow sailors technically, because that's what they're called in the Navy. Apologies for the slip of the tongue there. With that life that he has left, he's going to kill as many sharks as possible in order to try to even the score for what happened in the Pacific Ocean. Now, there's some negativity to that, right? 'Cause, like the people who like, my friend was attacked by a minority and now I'm going to hurt a minority. I don't love that type of stuff, right? There are some famous actors who I've alluded to in this episode who did that sort of thing. And it's just like, ooh, okay, that's not really how that works. It's a little bit different when it's like nature, but still, it's sort of a negative way to like approach the world.
Well, it's toxic masculinity. This movie is full of it, right? Yeah. Like if there is one big thing to levy against this movie in terms of like what to keep an eye out for is like this movie is heavily geared towards manly men and like this idea of what it means to be a man and what it means to prove your manliness and all of this stuff. And a lot of it has to do with this kind of stuff of putting yourself in dangerous situations, stupid situations, the inability to get over, like the greed and things like that. Like this entire thing is all about establishing what makes a good man, and inherently has some very toxic values, not just because of that conversation, but also the time that it's made and like who is making it and all this stuff. It has got a really, really, really hard slant towards that kind of misogynistic look at things.
Yeah. And we've already sort of touched on that with the fact of like women exist to be props. Ellen exists to be nervous about her her husband and her children. Mrs. Kintner exists to mourn the death of her son. And it's this really, I don't know. It's a film that I feel is worth celebrating because legitimately changed what film was. We would not have, Marvel would not have been the decades-long successful franchise that it was if not for Jaws coming out, 30 years prior to the first Iron Man releasing, right? Like it's just one of those things. Like it changed, it shaped an entire 50 years of film history. Most of the movies we talk about would not exist if not for Jaws. And
Yeah, but this idea that you could take summer fun, but also put some intent behind it, and actually make it into a piece of cinema
yeah.
was, just a revelation.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that, like, you could take that summer fun and put it on screen and create a villain that is so terrifying in Bruce, in this great white shark, this perfect killing machine, and have children across the country, adults across the country, the entire population of the world afraid to go swimming because of this movie. It doesn't matter if you're in, like, water that would be too cold to have a shark in it anymore. They make the fear of a shark attack so visceral that it's almost like evolution for how the human species reacts to the idea of the shark.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know people that were so afraid of stuff in the water, sharks being main concern, that they wouldn't even go in like lakes and stuff,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it came directly because they watched Jaws when they were little. I'll tell you this though, they were never fans of it.
I wonder why.
yeah, but yeah, there's definitely like there's that element where like it brings a fear, it can enact a fear, it can awaken a fear in you that like you didn't even know you had, and it's a deep one.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, it's so deep that sharks, I mean, here's the little PSA version of this. Because of the fear of sharks, that I'm going to lay on a movie like Jaws, though I know that it's certainly not the only film where sharks are there. Things like Deep Blue Sea exist. Things like Megalodon, Sharknado. Yeah. The Meg. Thank you. Which I want to check a couple of things. When did the Meg come out? 2018, so that's not it. But was Deep Blue Sea, like, when did that come out? Was that a 95? Or is that also... That's 99. Okay, so that one comes out, not really for a significant, like, the 34th anniversary. But it's one of those, I'm trying to think of that. But, like, films like Open Water, right? We're not doing any help in the creative space to this prejudice against sharks.
Yeah.
And as a result of that prejudice against sharks, which is born from fear, sharks do suffer an inordinate amount of violence against them each year. And it's just a thing to remember that, like, yes, they are out there, but they're just doing what's in their nature. Like, the shark in Jaws is this, like, super intelligent shark. And as Sejan said, there is never a moment where, oh, he ate the Braintron computer that went overboard and it gave him a super brain. Like, that's not the reason why. It's just this sort of personification that's given to him via the script and via the actions that a script is having him make.
I mean, when it throws itself onto the boat at the end, it is like so clearly full of I was gunning for you. He baits them out into the middle of the ocean, goes after Hooper down in the cage, and then just throws himself onto the boat to get the other two. It is just like, it is a targeted, planned attack. It is crazy.
The scarier part about that moment where he is just like, you are on a conveyor belt that ends in my stomach, which is where we see, that's how Quint ultimately passes away. That's a striking visual. It is scary. It is proof that this shark has been moving with intelligence and planning. But the scene where Brody is able to get into the cabin and is like about to start climbing up onto the mast, where he breaks through the window, like, that is the one where I'm like, this motherfucker is gunning for you. This is an embodiment, an avatar. This is the lion you begged God to bring to you to prove yourself, to Amity Island, to your wife, to your family, that you are still a viable man after whatever happened to you in New York City. That is never, like, told in the movie, but there's a whole hell of a lot of, like, breadcrumbs to follow towards it. And that is the moment where, like, now's your chance, man. Like, I'm not going to let you run away. You have to deal with this particular problem before it swims up and bites you on your ass. I don't think I'm doing anything better than that. I worked that in almost seamlessly, Sejin. So, any other parts about this movie you want to make sure we talk about? I have one more personal anecdote to share, because it is one of my favorite little moments from the 40th anniversary of this film. So, 40th anniversary, this is back when we're doing, so it's 2015, 2 friends on a couch, 3 friends in a movie, that whole thing. So we get a whole group of people together, and it includes the Decker family, and like friends of my mother's, friends of Dale. Like, this is the movie why Dale went to film school, is the film Jaws. She saw Jaws and said, I'm going to be a filmmaker. That was the path for Dale Decker. So we get everybody together, including my former co-host from 2 Friends on a Couch, and we go to see Jaws. And this is about the time that Narragansett had just started to like be back in production. It's the first year that they produced the 1975 style cans. And I, being Devin Decker, I wore my Marty McFly like insulated vest, right? What are you, some kind of jump ship? And I hid in that insulated vest 12 Narragansetts. And right before that scene in the movie where Quint cracks open a Gansett, drains the can, and then crushes it, I pass them out to everybody, and our whole row of people cracked the beer in unison with him. And it was like the coolest thing ever. Being in the theater, the magic of cinema that Nicole Kidman talks about, that Jerry Bruckheimer lamented like might one day die. We're all in this theater, we're all together, we're sharing in this moment, and then like suddenly we became part of the movie because we made that Foley exist within 4D. And it's one of my favorite memories of Jaws. It's one of the reasons why I always got to crush against it like Quint whenever I watch this film. And I thank you for having that moment to share that story, Sejin. I do appreciate you, brother. And I appreciate you letting us do this episode, too. Celebrating. It's been 50 years. But you know what that means? This year is the 100th year anniversary. It is the centennial of the Amity Island Regatta, July 4th to the 10th.
Man.
Something? Because, like, that's the other thing. That beautifully defaced billboard where the girl is given the big eyes and, like, help, shark! And the shark fin. Like, they're celebrating the 50th year of their, like, island regatta. And now here we are 50 years later celebrating the film that happens in. Also, just one final reference that like finally struck me this time, because I recently watched the film. The whole opening of the movie The Lost Boys, really, really huge reference to when Brody is driving to the beach to find Chrissy's body in the beginning. Right down to the billboard welcoming you and everything. So,
man,
like it's a far larger than we can fit into a 2-hour episode of this show to like talk about all of the Jaws references in cinema, and all of the service and like praise, respect, almost prayer that has been done in service of this film in the last 50 years. So hopefully what we've touched on was fun. And if you're out there and you're thinking of other references to Jaws that we missed, we'll keep the conversation going. We have a Discord. Invitations available wherever we are on social media, which is Facebook or X, formerly Twitter, or you can always contact us at the Say Report. It's thesayReport@gmail.com, and we can facilitate you with an invitation, or we'll just correspond with you via email. And again, if it's for me, Devin Decker, or him, Sejin Sarowick, just put our name in the subject line, and we'll make sure that whatever you're saying is only seen by the Say Reporter you chose to say it to. This is your last look, Siege, and anything else you want to say about this movie, now's your time. This is your Jerry Springer's final thought on Jaws.
Show me the way to go home.
Oh, I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Well, I had 4 drinks about an hour ago, and it went right to my head. Wherever I may roam, on land or sea or foam, You can always hear me singing a song. Show me the way to go home. I think that's your cue, Will. Thanks, Sejan, for this. Thanks to the listener. And I guess just finally, happy 50th anniversary, Jaws and Steven Spielberg. We'll see you next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.